Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. President Trump completely terminating every single one of former President Joe Biden's actions, which were signed using an Autopen. The Pentagon delaying a critical decision regarding a fleet of secret Navy fighter jets, which are vital to our nation's defenses against China. And French President Emmanuel Macron arriving in Beijing for a high-stakes diplomatic powwow. Among his lofty goals, securing Chinese leader Xi Jinping's help in ending the brutal war in Ukraine. Also, the man accused of shooting two National Guard members near the White House enters a plea to the charge of first-degree murder, and a famous Hollywood actress begs to be added back onto Tom Cruise's exclusive holiday cake list after inadvertently getting the boot. All this and a bunch more, it's coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we begin with this. Following through on a recent promise, President Trump now says that he is officially terminating every action that his predecessor Joe Biden made, which was signed using an Autopen. 47 announcing that moving forward, any and all documents, executive orders, or memorandums which were signed by that Autopen during the Biden administration, they are hereby considered null, void, and no longer in effect. Now, the ones he signed with that purple crayon, they're still considered mildly authentic. Additionally, the president is also putting a number of nervous people on high alert by claiming that any pardon or commutation they received, which was signed by that Biden Autopen, now effectively canceled, and this is no longer legal. And this can't be good for a whole bunch of cool cats who were left off the hook. So, Trump claims that Biden approved more than 90% of his official documents using an unauthorized Autopen signature, and also says that during Biden's time in office, his former White House staff did whatever they wanted and basically ran our entire government using a machine. It kind of sounds like we had the world's first AI president. However, a number of law experts disagree with Trump's opinion, and they argue that any presidential action which is signed by an Autopen is completely legal no matter who operated the device, as long as they were authorized and approved by the man in charge. Now, Biden's aides say their former boss relied on the Autopen often, especially when he was traveling or dealing with a number of health issues. In the meantime, the Republican-led House Oversight Committee says they're unable to find clear and inarguable proof that Biden personally approved each and every one of the executive actions which were signed using that Autopen, despite claims to the contrary. A number of scholars say that if the president had no idea what was going on and didn't approve each one of those individual Autopen signatures, then those actions can be legally challenged. I think what they're saying is, we'll see you in court. And final thoughts. This is the News Roundup Lowdown. It's a complicated story with a bunch of twists and turns, but at the end of the day, it makes a great deal of sense. Now, virtually anybody who saw Joe Biden in action during the bulk of his time in the White House knows full well that his bulbs were dimly lit, that he wasn't firing on all cylinders, and that clearly he kind of aged out of his job following his first year in office.
How would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused. I haven't, look, I have trouble even saying to myself my own head the number of years. I no more think of myself as being as old as I am than fly.
Yeah, his gait was compromised, his thought process impossible to follow, and none of us knew what the heck he was saying. And having a machine sign his name on a bunch of highly consequential executive orders, pardons of which you might call a nepotistic nature, and more, means that he and his handlers potentially put our great nation in jeopardy. On that note, hey, Art Fleming, the original Jeopardy host, I think I'll take presidential pardons for 200. That President Trump is trying to undo the mess which the former president and his co-conspirators left behind is brilliant. Long overdue, brutally necessary, but I do smell a court battle a-brewing. Now, here's the thorny part. How will the Trump administration authentically prove that documents were signed by an Autopen without Biden's approval, unless Kathleen Kamala's former boss steps up with a big admission? It's not going to happen. Dr. Jill's going to stand by her man, absolutely, and fearing time behind bars, time in the joint. Nobody from the Biden White House is going to throw the old guy under the bus. That's called loyalty, and you got to kind of like that. Now, I know producer Davey signs all of his autograph pictures with a number 2 pencil, like that one. Just assuming, Davey, you're no fan of the Autopen. Is that right?
Well, Bill, people have been using Autopens for years now for their signatures. And my concern is if you start invalidating every one of those digital signatures, the world's going to be in chaos.
Yeah, we are. Well, we're already in chaos. But look, for purposes of full disclosure, use of the Autopen in the White House at the very least should be accompanied by a sitting president on camera saying that he has authorized the action. By the way, if you have any thoughts on this particular story or any stories we share with you right here on this program, we encourage you to leave us a note, and you'll find us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. And moving along now, we're going to turn to some very alarming developments concerning the U.S. military and our nation's life or death race to defend our country from the growing peril posed by our foreign adversaries. With the military threat of Communist China growing more severe with each passing day, the Pentagon is kicking the can down the road and refusing to make a critical decision which could leave our lives, all of us, in jeopardy. For the past 15 years, the U.S. military has been secretly developing an experimental state-of-the-art Navy fighter jet known only as the FAXX, which experts say will be critical in our efforts to combat China. Now, both Boeing and Northrop Grumman have already built prototypes of these ultra-modern fighter jets and are now waiting anxiously for the Defense Department to choose who's going to be awarded that very lucrative contract. However, for some unknown reason, the Pentagon dragging their feet, refusing to make a commitment, and experts warn that their lingering indecision is both shocking and, sure, it's extremely dangerous. According to authorities, the FAXX, a long-range stealth jet designed to be launched from aircraft carriers, also with modern capabilities that can send a shiver right down the back of China's spine. We're watching you. Earlier this year, Congress added $1 billion clams to the federal budget to accelerate the FAXX program, warning that any further delays could leave the Navy dangerously outmatched in a fight with the Chinese Communist regime. Yeah, it's important stuff. And final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. The overall scheme of things, provided each and every one of us has satellites or cable TV with hundreds or perhaps even thousands of streaming options, I say everything's going to be A-OK. Provided the freezer is chock full of TV dinners, I love that frozen lasagna, and there's tons of soda in the fridge, we think there's little to be concerned about. And if regular unleaded falls below $3 a gallon, I think all's going to be pretty well in the world. On the other hand, if you're even mildly concerned about China's ever-expanding global influence, their enormous military-industrial complex, and the world's largest navy, then right about now would be an opportune time to dial in and think about our future. Back to the sea, China's Navy is in fact larger than ours, but by all accounts, we still have naval superiority. However, it's clear that absent the FAXX, our air superiority over China, that could leave us in a highly compromised position in the event of a conflict. Now, Congress has appropriated the funds, the new aircraft critical to our very survival. And the event of a future war, there's be no time to play catch-up. In the interest of national and global security, the Pentagon and the White House, they need to act immediately, as in yesterday. And hey, Producer Davey, you're a thrifty guy. I didn't say cheap. I said you're a thrifty guy. And what do you think? Put the aircraft on ice, save the dough, and maybe throw all that extra cash at social programs? Or hunker down, get down to business? What do you think?
No. Look, we got to do everything we can to maintain our advantage militarily over China, as well as all of our foreign adversaries. Look, it's a threat to freedom all over the world.
Yeah, and our very freedom right here at home. And for far too long, I think we've stood idly by, watching China grow like an out-of-control chia pet. And left to their devices and a future administration with liberals at the helm, I'm convinced we're all doomed. But right now, 47 can still step up, jump in, and effectively save the day and keep us all on track. And more now on the growing threat that China poses to the entire world and the expanding diplomatic efforts by European leaders to try to rein in the communist regime. There's a lot of work to be done. And right now, French President Emmanuel Macron is paying a visit to Beijing, and officials say his top priority is to convince Chinese leader Xi Jinping to help bring about an end to Russia's devastating campaign against Ukraine. French officials say they're hoping that Macron can sway Xi to reverse course, lean on Moscow, and ultimately persuade Russian President Vladimir Putin to make the right decision and finally agree to a ceasefire. They also say that the French leader will make it perfectly clear to Xi that China must immediately stop providing the resources to Russia, which have been helping Moscow continue their brutal assault against Ukraine. However, it is worth pointing out that this is not the first time that Macron has paid a visit to China, and during each of his previous trips, he's come away empty-handed each and every time. Meanwhile, the hypocritical communist regime repeatedly calls for peace talks, while secretly providing Russia with significant military and economic support, and that keeps Moscow's sputtering war machine chugging along. But for how much longer? And final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Now, we're certainly not in the business of beating up on our crepe-consuming cousins in France. Actually, I dig France. And some years ago, even kept company with Mademoiselle Chloe Desjardins. Fine young lady. But does anybody really think that France can be more effective than the U.S. in shutting this war down? Look, here's the deal. We've said a number of times right here on this program that China's top dog, the now legendary Xi Jinping, who, by the way, buys his suits from the Alibaba website at $89 a pop. Davey, is he a dapper-dressed guy or what?
Oh, he's a sharp-dressed man, Bill.
He is a sharp-dressed man, just like ZZ Top sang about all those years ago. This guy could absolutely sit down for a chat and chew with Russia's warmonger, Vladimir Putin. They could wolf down some borscht, beef stroganoff, knock it back with a cup of tea, and come up with a game plan to stop all this ridiculous madness. That Monsieur Macron actually believes he'll have some pull with Xi Jinping. Mildly honorable, but at the bottom, at the end of the day, it's wholly nonsensical. And to be clear, China has been and is currently an active participant, a co-conspirator in Russia's war with Ukraine. They're purchasing an incredible amount of fuel from Russia, which helps fund Putin's war efforts. And China is also helping Russia build drones for use in that war. And given his druthers, Xi Jinping wants nothing to do with peace. And like Putin, they both simply thrive on chaos. Nice try, Manny, but at the end of the day, China is playing both sides of the fence, and they're far more committed to Russia than the EU, the U.S., or anybody and everybody else. Now, Producer Davey, what say you? Go ahead and give it the college try, or should Macron kind of ghost Xi and head back to France's version of our White House? They call it the Élysée Palace. Élysée Palace? I think that's how you say it. What do you say?
Yeah, look, China's gearing up for a fight with the West, clearly, and nobody's going to convince the communist regime of anything, but hey, good luck trying. Good luck trying. They've tried it before, and they'll try it again, but to no avail at the end of the day. Bottom line is China wants war. They want to support Russia, and they don't care how much damage is caused, how many people are brutally killed, assassinated in battle, and how unstable the world is becoming each and every day. They're not on the front lines, but in my estimation, Davey, blood is clearly on the hands of communist China. Now, some additional headlines we are keeping a close watch on here in the old News Roundup newsroom. And first in Washington, the Afghan national accused of recently shooting two members of the National Guard near the White House, pleading not guilty to charges of first-degree murder, as well as a number of other gun offenses. The 29-year-old suspect appearing in court virtually from his bed in a nearby hospital where he's currently under heavy guard, as you can imagine, while recovering from injuries sustained in that attack. Changing subjects, a shocking new report showing that a skyrocketing number of Gen Z college freshmen are now beginning their university studies without the ability to do middle school level math, with a bunch of them unable to perform even basic arithmetic. Davey, to be fair, if x plus y equals 14 squared, then I'm in no better shape than the collegiate crew. And which one is math? Is that the numbers one or is that the letters one? Yeah, Bill, math is the one with the numbers, and English is the one with the letters.
With the letters. Got it. And over in the Middle East, Iran's currency falling to an all-time low against the dollar as nuclear sanctions continue to put a tremendous squeeze on Tehran's faltering economy. And a reminder that Tehran, the nation's capital, has no water, a failed economy, no water, and a nuclear program. No nuclear program at all. You'll recall we obliterated that. Yeah, the Grand Poobah, the Ayatollah Khomeini, strikes again. There's a great success story for you. And turning to the world of business now, and a quick glance at a couple of stories which are stirring up the pot in finance, also in retail, and a bunch more. Leading things off, Samsung unveiling a revolutionary new smartphone, a device called the Galaxy Z Trifold. I've heard about that one. Nifty gadget, 3 separate panels unfolding into a 10-inch screen, and going for the bargain basement price of just under $2,500. Now, Producer Davey, as you know, Christmas is coming up, and all I have is a rotary dial flip phone. Can you help me out a little bit?
Yeah, Bill, I think I'm going to help you out with a lump of coal.
Lump of coal, each and every year. What a guy. Speaking of big bucks, President Trump says that if all goes according to plan with his tariffs, it won't be long before Americans won't have to pay any income tax at all. Well, 47, we're all ears. Give us more. And while we're on the subject of income, not as in taxes, but as in income, a Wall Street guru making waves after claiming that the new poverty line for a family of four here in the U.S. is $140,000 a year. He says that when you factor in housing, food, childcare, and all the rest, that's what an American family needs these days just to get by and hold on by your fingernails. And if that's the case, then I think I want to live in poverty as well. I'd be happily miserable with $140,000 per year. Could you live off $140,000 a year in poverty well, Davey?
You know, it might be tough, Bill, but I think I could make it work.
I'd give it a shot. And a quick gander at some rockin' good showbiz news now. And we kick things off today with a monumental change to the happiest place on earth. Yeah, after a quarter of a century, Disney World and Florida finally bringing down the curtain on their partnership with the legendary musical group Aerosmith, giving the aging rockers the boot and scrubbing the band's presence from their popular rock and roller coaster attraction as they prepare to convert the ride into a Muppet-themed adventure. Who thought of that? This one makes absolutely no sense. You don't replace chocolate cake with celery. You don't trade in a Corvette for a station wagon, and shutting down the Aerosmith roller coaster and replacing that with a Muppets ride. Well, that's just dumb. David, that's just dumb. Now, if our Disney pals think the new ride is going to be better, then they can dream on. Turning now to the world of showbiz, and according to a number of Hollywood celebrities, one of Tinseltown's most prestigious holiday traditions, receiving a scrumptious coconut cake from none other than the Top Gunner himself, the guy in the airplane, Tom Cruise. They say, you know, you've made it to the top when he adds your name to his exclusive list that he sends out dozens of cakes every year, and that if he really digs you, you're in for life. That is, except if you're actress Brooke Shields. She claims she's the only one who's ever been booted off the list, and now she's begging Maverick to light up the afterburners and put her right back on. Well, do all you can to read between the lines on this one. The story actually has less to do with Tom Cruise, has a little bit more to do with me. It's more about me, Davey. Is that right?
It's always about you, Bill.
It is about me. As we all know by now, Brooke Shields and I, yes, we were Hollywood royalty, a super couple for some 8 or 9 years. I didn't keep track. How many years were we together, Davey?
I think it was closer to 9, Bill.
I think it was closer to 9 years. But when she flew the coop, Team Cruise, they found out she was immediately pulled off the old cake list. Now here's the deal, Brooke. I'm still on the list. Coconut cakes right now, they're more delicious than ever from Tom Cruise. And if you drop me an email at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com, I'll try to get you back on the list. There are no grudges here. And if you think egg prices are high in your local market, and check this one out. A rare diamond-encrusted Fabergé egg, originally created for Russia's ruling family, just sold at a London auction for a record price of more than $30 million. I got to ask you, Davey, who in the world would pay 30 million simoleons for one goofy egg? And here's the deal. An omelet over at Denny's sets you back $9, maybe $10. Also, you can grab a dozen of the big ones at Walmart for about $4. So 30 million for one egg sounds a bit pricey. So do you get anything with that? Bacon or toast, rye toast, anything?
No, Bill, I think you just get a nice legendary Fabergé egg.
30 million bucks. All right, time for us to call it a wrap on the Wednesday edition of the Big News Roundup. And before we go, as we do each and every day right here on the program, we like to share with you a very notable quote. And these thought-provoking words come to us today from the great Fred Rogers, who said, "Knowing that we can be loved exactly as we are gives us all the best opportunity for growing into the healthiest of people." You know, as we all know, Rogers was an American television personality, a Presbyterian minister as well, and he was best known to millions of fans as the host of the long-running children's program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And I think Fred was also married to Ginger Rogers. Is that right, Davey?
No, Bill. I think in this case, Ginger Rogers was a dancer and an actress, and Fred Rogers was the host of his own program, and I don't think they had anything to do with each other.
Yeah, honest mistake. And now it is time for us to bust on out. But before we go, hey, don't forget our famous News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you. Ask what you can do for your podcast. For example, it's pretty easy. Simply subscribe to the program with that little button right there, and that way you never miss even a single episode. And if it's not too much to ask, but sure appreciate it, if you'd hit up a friend or two, ask them to subscribe to the channel as well. And now it looks like our time, it's officially up. So have an awesome day today. Please stay safe. Let's all continue to watch out for one another. It's easy. And with that, we're going to dim the lights. We're going to fade to black, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow afternoon.